Hello, and welcome to So You Want to Teach Woodwinds, Episode 2. This episode is concerning the B-flat clarinet. So, as we stated in the flute video, when this clarinet is being assembled and not being played, this case needs to be on the floor in between your feet or underneath your chair. So, for demonstration purposes, I'm going to assemble this clarinet and take it out of the case right here on this table. When you open the case, you should see about 6 different parts. A lot more complex than the flute. We're going to start with probably the most important parts, move in order down the clarinet. So we're going to talk about forming an embouchure here in a second after we get the mouthpiece put together. So the mouthpiece itself comes in about 4 parts. Here's the mouthpiece, Yamaha branding on the front here. The bottom is a cork. The cork is what is going to help connect these parts of the clarinet together, the major parts. The mouthpiece cover, which we just removed, and the ligature. The ligature is very important because it connects the reed to the mouthpiece. So speaking of the reed is an extremely important part of this instrument because the reed vibrating is what allows the clarinet to produce sound. So the reed, a package reed, will look like this. They usually come in about packages of 10. This is a 3.5. This is a 3. That is a thickness scale. When handling this reed, you want to make sure that you handle it by the base and not the tip. The base is usually branded and thicker, and the tip is much thinner, a lot more fragile. So before you play with a reed, it needs to be soaked. It needs to be a proper amount of soaked, not over soaked, not under soaked. So what most clarinetists will do, so place this in their mouth. So I've actually pre-soaked it a little bit for time's sake, but I'm going to soak it a little bit while you wait. Now this next part is very important. I'm going to remove that ligature from the mouthpiece, and for fragility's sake, you want to put the barrel on the mouthpiece before you add the reed. So I'm going to do that for you right now. An important note is it shouldn't be extremely difficult to put parts of the clarinet together. I do not have any graphite or cork grease, so it's a little hard for me right now, but you want to make sure that you are not twisting. They should go flush onto one another. So this part here, the back of the mouthpiece, the part that faces the performer, you know it's the back, it's got this flat part and this opening in it. The flat part of the reed is going to go onto there. You're going to make sure, it's going to be hard to see on camera, but that there is very little room in between the top of that reed and the top of the mouthpiece. Should be just a tiny black sliver. When you've got it where you want it, you're going to loosen this ligature, place it back on the mouthpiece, and you want to make sure that the ligature screws are facing the performer's right. That flat part of the mouthpiece is called the barrel. Flat part of the mouthpiece is called the table. And that's what that flat part of the reed is going to go on, the flat branded part. So when I'm doing this, I'm making sure not to handle the reed by the tip. As I said, it's very fragile. And secure it with the ligature. You just want to make sure that that ligature is down far enough. On this one, I've got it down so far that I can see some of this engraving on the mouthpiece. So this is the mouthpiece all put together without the mouthpiece cover. So important part about this, like we stated earlier, is to make sure that it's properly soaked. So throughout the video, you might see me re-soaking the reed. It's just so I can ensure that I'm playing it correctly with a good sound. So now let's talk about the embouchure. So this is a little strange. It's a new sensation. You want to make sure here, you can definitely see on this clarinet where it's happened before, about a 1/4 inch down, there's these white marks. These marks come from you placing that part of the mouthpiece onto the back of your top teeth and holding it there as an anchor point. You should put a little pressure forward, but not enough for any sort of pain or anything that you wouldn't want to do. Right? About a 1/4 inch down. Your bottom teeth need to be covered with your bottom lip. You shouldn't fold it over like this. You see? But just enough to where it covers them. You do not want teeth contact with that reed. You put that bottom lip about halfway down the reed and those top teeth back on the front. And just continue to re-soak. Top teeth on, bottom lip on. Now, it's a little easier to produce a sound on the clarinet. You just want to make sure that you're set, you breathe. It should be an ew, ew type of motion. The best way to describe it for me is really you just blow the way you think you blow. You don't want to overblow. When playing just the mouthpiece and the reed, should produce an F sharp. That sound comes from that reed vibrating against the mouthpiece. I'll put this aside for now, because this is the most fragile part of the instrument. We're going to put together the rest of the pieces. So, oh, that was almost cool. What we've got in here is the upper section. The upper section consists of the thumb hole, the register key. These are facing the performer. They're the back of the instrument. And then these tone holes, 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3, sorry. This is going to be connected to the lower section. One easy way to differentiate these is the upper section is smaller, the lower section is larger, and the cork is going to go into the one without a cork. So you can't really mess them up because cork cannot go into cork, right? The important thing to do when you're doing this is to make sure that you press this key down. That is going to elevate this bridge key. This bridge key is going to line up perfectly with this other bridge key. Just to make sure that's elevated so you're not pushing it into it. And they're going to line up flush. Like I said earlier, you don't want to do any twisting. Like I stated earlier, when putting these parts of the crown together, no twisting. They need to go flush on. And I'm going to say it again, no graphite, no cork grease. It's a little difficult for me now, but it's nothing impossible. The next part we want to put on is going to be called the bell. Very similar to a trumpet bell, but it's going to face this way. And then a lot of clarinetists like to rep the brand, especially if they're getting paid to rep the brand. So they like the brand to be facing forward, but this is the only part of the clarinet where the alignment does not matter. Right? So on the back of the instrument, we have this thumb rest for your right thumb. That thumb is going to go underneath it. The tone hole, the thumb hole, and the register key, which we've already talked about. So in holding the clarinet, your right thumb goes underneath that thumb rest. Fingers 1, 2, and 3 on these tone holes. Fingers 4, 5, and 6 on these tone holes. And your pinky should rest in the vicinity of any of these keys so that you can play any of them when you need to, right? Important thing about the clarinet is unlike those padded flutes, these tone holes have to be completely covered to produce a sound. So it's very important. What we're going to do next is attach the mouthpiece and the barrel to the rest of the clarinet. Of course, this alignment matters as well. You want that table, the flat part of the mouthpiece, to be aligned perfectly with the thumb hole, the register key, and the front. Of course, a good rule of thumb is all the branding to be lined up. So now our clarinet is completely assembled. Should look just like this. I'll do a little, right? And then you can have that cover on the top, but I do not because I'm about to play it. So that same embouchure we talked about earlier, you're going to use when the whole flute is together. Now, instead of producing an F sharp, it should produce a G, which, of course, for the clarinet being a B flat instrument, is actually an A. producing that squeak because I had too much mouthpiece in my mouth. Remember, we want that bottom lip to be about halfway on the reed. It's very easy to tell if your embouchure is bad on a clarinet because you will not produce a crystal clear sound. See, the clarinet is one of the most offensive instruments in an ensemble. Either the piccolo or the xylophone or the violin are the only instruments that can rival it, only when played poorly. See how bad that is? So to make sure that you're producing a good sound on the clarinet. And to do that, just to restate, those top teeth anchored, the bottom teeth just barely covered with your bottom lip, halfway on the instrument, and you want to make sure you're set before you breathe and play, because if you're not, it's almost impossible to do without preparation. Ready? That is just terrible. So when you disassemble, deassemble's not a word, Mr. Hayes. When you disassemble the clarinet, you want to make sure you go in the same order. I always remove the reed first because it's the most fragile part of the instrument. Place it back in its case, place all the parts back in the case, and have a great day practicing. Thank you.